Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of MJ Flood Technology and HPE, I'd like to welcome you to this morning's webinar on HPE GreenLake. Very strange times. Ordinarily, we would be sitting in a hotel somewhere, having a nice breakfast and extolling the virtues of HPE GreenLake. But unfortunately, the times that we find ourselves in, we're reduced to webinars. Notwithstanding that, technology moves on, and it won't wait for coronavirus. So here we are. We thank you for your time, for joining us this morning. We'll keep it reasonably succinct, as we know that people's time is valuable. So we're on a 45-minute slot this morning. I'm delighted to welcome Davin Cody, CIO for HPE, with me this morning, and he is going to take us through a presentation on HPE GreenLake. And we'll follow that up then with a Q&A with him, where we'll ask all the tough questions, and it won't be quite so easy on him. We would encourage you, in order to participate in this morning's webinar, to please feel free to slot questions into the Q&A, and we can have a chat around those. And it's important on these things to get some customer engagement. That it's not us just talking constantly. So just to, I suppose, to set the scene for this morning, I'm a 25-year veteran of the IT industry. I've seen centralization, decentralization, centralization of IT again. We've seen the arrival of cloud, and we see the raging debate of public cloud versus private cloud, and indeed, on-premise. What we're hoping to show you this morning is that, hybrid is the approach, and I think that we will all agree that certain workloads are applicable to public cloud, and certain workloads are not. And it's against the backdrop of that we bring you HPE GreenLake this morning. Cloud everything is the message from HPE. Antonio Neri announced on their HPE worldwide broadcast back in June that everything would be procured through HPE GreenLake by the end of 2022. So if you've made a significant investment into HPE, or indeed you're considering making investments into it, then GreenLake is something that you need to pay particular attention to. The key things that are top of mind within our customers always, and regardless of whether they choose public cloud, private cloud, or an on-premise solution, is agility, control, security, compliance, and that goes right across the stack. And Davin will take us through all of the elements of that, but particularly to agility. So what do we need as a single pane of glass in which to manage our environments, whether they're public or private, and to reduce the total cost of ownership of IT, to use IT then as an enabler to drive forwards with the business. So it's against that backdrop that we're setting this morning's webinar. I'd like to now welcome Davin Cody, and he'll take us through the presentation, and then we'll pop back to you then for the Q&A after that. And once again, thanks for taking the time to join us this morning. So over to you, Davin.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it, and thanks for having me here today and to talk to yourself and your customers. For a number of years now, HP has been of the mind that the world is going to be hybrid. And we saw that, a number of years ago when we came out with services like the Right Mix Advisor. GreenLake really is here to enable customers to adapt to a hybrid world without adding additional complexity into their existing environment. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to share a short presentation just to give you a bit of a background of what GreenLake is, and maybe put a bit of context around some of the questions that you might come up with later on. I like this analogy here. You know, we see these two bridges, and it's basically the two modes in which organizations are operating today. You know, at the top we've what I call the highway, or the high-speed highway, which has been enabled by digital transformation and the cloud. Being able to spin up resources when they're required, how they're required, no caps in relation to the resources that are available to you. It's always there when you need it, on tap. And you know, down here at the bottom is probably a scenario that most people are very familiar with. You know, it's what we generally term as the legacy systems, systems that are bound by either data gravity, or the requirement for locality to local to the users, or in many cases the fact that a lot of these are legacy applications that can't be refactored or modernized to essentially adapt and avail of the efficiencies that the public cloud brings. And this is essentially the tough decision that many organizations are having to make today. With HPE GreenLake, through digital transformation, we want to try and effectively alleviate the pain points that we get within that traditional architecture that we see today. By delivering infrastructure as a service, or as a service solutions to customers, enabling them to have the resources on tap when they're required, have the environment managed for them, optimized for them as part of the overall solution, and effectively make the organization more adaptable, and essentially make IT an enabler for the business itself. So the tagline, GreenLake is the cloud that comes to you. So, you know, we're seeing a big shift in relation to technology today. So as you pointed out at the very start, James, you know, we've gone from centralized compute to decentralized compute, back to centralized compute. But one of the big changes that's happening at the moment is effectively around the edge. A huge amount of data is being accessed and generated at the edge. And generally that needs to be close to the users. And it also needs to be close to the data center, where we want to effectively pull that information in and make sure that we can gain value from that information. And pushing that to the cloud may not be the most efficient way to do it. But with solutions such as GreenLake, effectively what we're able to give you is that cloud experience wherever you want it, whether it be within your own data center, or whether it be within a co-location facility. And so what GreenLake really does, it's delivering a self-service portal, where you can go on, you can consume services, you can add additional resources, or spin up and spin down resources as you require. One of the key differentiators is it's pay per use. So through a number of investments, R&D investments and acquisitions, we've got a model now where we actually meter and monitor through various different parameters. So organizations can actually pay for what they use within that environment. And that's one of the big shifts that makes this unique in the market at the moment. As I said before, with GreenLake, because we're delivering this as a service, we're delivering the infrastructure, the monitoring, the management. We also make sure that there's enough infrastructure there. So when an organization wants to scale, that they can just turn that on without having to wait for the infrastructure to arrive. And that's one of the key tenets within GreenLake itself. But more importantly, for many organizations, what you'll find is they may have peaky workload. You know, whether they're a retail organization that spikes at Christmas, having the ability to spin up resource from November through to January and then spin it back down again. From their perspective, all they will see is essentially is an increased bill for those 2 months where they've spiked up. But essentially, when they turn that resource off in January, they get back to their norms in relation to their utilization and the billing that they might have. But nothing can really be as a service unless it's managed for you. You know, we've seen many competitors announce in the market recently how they're going to deliver as a service, but many of them are still focused around financial service models and how people can pay per use, but they're not really looking at really what does as a service mean. And as part of GreenLake, we're delivering many different solutions and scenarios to customers that's managed for them to give them a real as a service experience. Many of you have probably seen this slide before. It really is the challenge that organizations have to balance the resources that they have versus the capital that they have and what the expectation is from the business. This purple line here essentially outlines what a traditional procurement methodology might mean. Generally we plan for 3 to 5 years time, so we've wasted capital within this blue shaded area here. But there are points where we might actually constrain workloads because we haven't got the resources we need. With GreenLake, essentially what we do is we through negotiation, through our contract, we put a reserved capacity in that a customer can use. But more importantly, we will always have additional capacity in the environment, which we refer to as buffer, so that within your organization, you can simply turn on additional resources within this buffer whenever you require. So it effectively will enable IT to be able to react to the business requirements when it's needed without stranding additional capital within the organization. But as I said before, being able to reduce back down to these reserved capacity levels whenever required. So really making the most of the IT spend that you have within the organizations. And that was one of the promises that cloud made to customers. And essentially that's what we can deliver today through GreenLake. So with GreenLake, the early iterations of GreenLake, we were looking at, infrastructure as a service. But as we said, GreenLake is now a business unit within HPE, focusing on the as-a-service solutions that we can deliver to customers. And it's about the whole wrap that this encompasses for the organizations themselves. So many customers might be familiar with the likes of private cloud or virtual machines as a service, which we would have done in the past into the likes of our flexible capacity solutions. But so many organizations are looking at new services, new ways of delivering benefit and efficiency to the organization. So within GreenLake, we've solutions around containers as a service or machine learning as a service, data protection, all these solutions that organizations want to avail of, but may not have the skills and may not want to put large upfront capital cost to do this and want to be able to do it and pay for it as they scale it. One of the key tenets within GreenLake essentially is the cloud experience or the self-service portal. So every GreenLake customer will get GreenLake Central, and through GreenLake Central, they can see exactly what's happening within their environment. They will have metrics in relation to consumption, how their bills are faring out over a period of time. But it's also a marketplace where they can consume additional services that are available through the GreenLake Central portal itself. But no organization is going to be able to do this transformation by itself. We're seeing many organizations and they're already constrained with the resources that they have on site. So with GreenLake, or with HPE GreenLake, through its services organization Point Next, and through the services that the likes of MJ Flood can bring, we've advisory services and consultancy services, a whole wrap to be able to help customers navigate their way through this hybrid cloud journey. One of the big things about GreenLake is helping organizations optimize what they have. And that comes back to a core tenet that HPE had a number of years ago, which is all about the right mix. We want to help customers embrace cloud, but embrace it in a sustainable, optimized way for their organization. And with GreenLake, this is helping us address that for organizations. I really like this slide because to me, it really brings home what GreenLake is and how it is actually delivered as a service. So as you can see here from this slide, this essentially is what your organization as a customer would see. So you have the GreenLake Central portal where you can log in, access the information that you need. And that information, it helps deliver insights into what's going on within your organization to help you make decisions. Because one of the key aspects around agility is the ability to make decisions at an appropriate time. So having that information to hand will help you make those right decisions. And also see what's happening, not just within your own on-premise organization, but also what's happening within your public cloud. Behind the scenes, then you have the effectively whole as a service machinery. So as I mentioned earlier on, through the GreenLake Central portal, you can receive and request new services, whether they be the likes of the compliance services or public cloud connectivity. That can be done through the GreenLake Central portal itself. Within your own as a service solution that you have through GreenLake is the ability to deploy additional workload within that footprint that you already have. And again, done through a number of clicks. So an example we would have here would be the likes of private cloud as a service, where we can deploy workload on premise into your environment, again, just through a number of clicks through the automation tools that we have. As you know, this whole environment is metered and costed for you. So you can see exactly what you're using at any point in time and have the visibility to be able to see which departments or which users within your organization are consuming which resources from not only just your on-premise environment, but also from your public cloud environment. The key aspect here, though, is the insights and the run and operate. So with the as a service solution, we will run and operate either the infrastructure or the platform that you've acquired, but also deliver insights into what's happening within that platform as well. So as part of the GreenLake Central portal, we have a tool called Consumption Analytics. So with Consumption Analytics, you can see what resources are being used and whether they're sized appropriately. If they're oversized, size them down so you make sure you're only paying for the resources that are being consumed within the environment, rather than paying for RAM or CPU that's actually not being used efficiently. So it's all around getting the optimization of the environment that you have, but HPE running and operating it for you. As part of the way the buffering and the minimum commit capacities work, that resource will always be there for you to use. But if it's a case that you're on a trajectory of growth and you've already consumed some of the buffer capacity that's in there, as part of the GreenLake service, there will be a account manager, a technical account manager assigned to you, where they will continue to review what resources are being consumed within the environment. And if needs be, we'll then just add more capacity into the environment ready for you to avail of when required. And again, this is done because it's as a service, this is done in negotiation with yourselves. So if it's a case that you have new projects or you think there's an acquisition coming down the road that may require additional resource, again, we can pre-plan this up front and have it available for you when you require. And then finally, it's all about the billing. So delivered to you on a monthly bill that you have, but again, through the central portal, being able to see how those bills are faring up over the coming months. And also through the analytics tools we have, see what your trends are in relation to utilization of the resource that you have. And I have a couple of screenshots later on that we can go through that might bring that to life for yourself and your customers. We know within an organization there are various different people that have different requirements of the infrastructure and the tool sets that are available to any organization or any IT department. We know that the CIO will want to get better efficiency of what's being used and be able to release the resource that they have within their own IT skills to focus more on the services and the business rather than effectively feeding and watering the infrastructure that's available within the environment itself. Developers will want to know what's happening, or that want to have the ability to spin up and spin down resource when they require. One of the big complaints that we have is IT is an inhibitor to development and too slow to react. And it's been one of the reasons why we've seen such an adoption of cloud. But one of the concerns we have around that then comes down to the likes of the chief security officer or legal and compliance in relation to any workloads that we have deployed in the cloud. Have they been deployed based on our best practice? You know, are we using the appropriate information up in those clouds? Are we sure we don't have security issues regarding some user data that potentially might be used for development? So with GreenLake, what we want to do is, through the portals and through the services that we have, being able to address each of the core requirements of the key stakeholders within the organization. And we're able to do that through the GreenLake Central portal. And so, you know, as I said earlier on, this is a single repository for you as an organization, as an IT department, as a finance organization, to retrieve the information you need in relation to the services that you're delivering to your customers, whether they be internal or external. Information in relation to your billing charges, information in relation to the capacity that you're using within the organization today, to enable you to plan efficiently and effectively based on real insights in relation to what you're consuming and how you're consuming that resource. With the ability to actually view cost and controls, not just within what's in your GreenLake environment, but also what's within your AWS, your Azure, your GCP environments that again are delivering services and resources to your customers. And within this, also having the ability to effectively tag each of those resources that you're consuming to a department or to a user, to give you the ability to show back, which departments are consuming with resources, which again is a great insight to have as you plan forward for the next year and see which departments are growing, which departments need more resources, or even being able to see of the resources that those departments have, are they being used efficiently, are they being used effectively, and how can we right size those? So that centralization of information really should help customers embrace hybrid cloud and effectively then evaluate where is the most appropriate place to put workloads within the environment. From a pay-per-use perspective, through the acquisition of the likes of Cloud Cruiser, pay for only what you consume, whether that be monitored on a per CPU, per gigabyte of storage, per gigabyte of RAM. It's up to you. It depends on how we define the service that we're delivering into yourself as an organization. Having the capacity available to you whenever you require, and then aligning the services to the business need, focusing more on the services and the business outcome and less on the infrastructure that you're driving within your data center itself. As I mentioned before, optimization of your workloads is one of the key tenets that we have. With the consumption analytics, being able to see what resources are out there, how they're being utilized, and how they can be best utilized, and having those insights effectively enabling you to drive additional efficiencies within the environment, not only from an IT service delivery perspective, but also in relation to a utilization and a costs perspective. So at all times, this isn't an environment that is a set and forget. It's an environment that we can get granular insights from to deliver more efficiency to you as a customer and to enable you to make the appropriate decisions and effectively gain some of that agility that you alluded to earlier on, James. As I said, GreenLake has been evolving over the last number of years. In the early periods, it would have been known more as infrastructure as a service, or in its previous iteration, flexible capacity. But really, we're looking at the services and the platforms that deliver business benefit to organizations today. So whether you're looking to dabble in the likes of containers, and whether you're an organization that needs to have the efficiency of cloud with on-prem security and availability, to be able to be delivered as a private cloud as a service, where we own not just the infrastructure, but also the automation layer that will deliver that agility to you. But essentially, there's a whole plethora of services available to organizations today for you to consume, and all of these managed through that single GreenLake central portal that I talked about earlier on. And I suppose as we get to, in summary, what does GreenLake really deliver? I suppose the key one for me would be in relation to making the environment hybrid ready. You said earlier on, cloud is going to form a large part of the arsenal for many IT organizations. But what we want to do is give customers the choice to make sure they're making the most appropriate choice of where they're placing that workload, where they're placing that storage, and being able to deliver that service or resource to users wherever they're going to be. I suppose initially everyone would have been in the office. Now we've seen with COVID, it's been able to deliver it over the internet. The consistency in relation to IT operations. So if HPE are delivering this infrastructure to you as a service, it means your team can focus on the services or the opportunities to deliver more efficiency to the organization itself. So having that consistency of delivery in relation to the platform that's available to you. And then also having the availability of the variable payments. So you just spike up and spike down when required. And being able to effectively free up trapped capital within an organization. We're seeing many organizations having to make hard decisions in relation to the capital that they have and where they invest that within the organization. That stranded capital can be released through the likes of GreenLake back into the organization for many business initiatives that are probably getting neglected due to spends within the IT organization. And more importantly, it's reduce the risk. By having all of that information to you, available to you through GreenLake Central, you can make the right decisions today on the best place to place that workload, but also have the comfort to know that if you have placed it on premise, that you have the ability to scale and adapt that workload as the business demands. So hopefully that's given you and everyone here today a good summary and an insight into what GreenLake is and some of the benefits it has. But I know, James, you have a number of questions that you wanted to ask and try and clarify some of the messages that you're probably hearing from your customers. So let's get into those and see if we can address some of those concerns.
Excellent. Okay, thanks for that, Davin. That was really really useful, and we also have we've a lot of questions coming in on the live chat as well, but we'll get to those. So look, when we're out speaking to customers, there's a recurring theme which would suggest that GreenLake is a financing model for acquisition of IT infrastructure. And it's even been suggested that, you know, might it be the PCP of the IT world? So can you address that one for us, Davin, please?
Yeah, I suppose initially the one thing that dropped for me in relation to GreenLake about 2 years ago was when I started looking under the hood and the mechanics behind GreenLake itself. And the first thing that came to me is, you know, at no point are you going to be dealing with a financial services organization. You're dealing with HPE services. So HPE Point Next effectively will come and design a service contract with you as the customer around the service that we're going to deliver. So this is delivered to you as a service. So when you then get the infrastructure or the service, HPE will own that asset. HPE will manage that asset right the way through its life cycle for you. And the other part of it as well is GreenLake isn't just a product. So GreenLake is a business unit within Hewlett Packard Enterprise, where we're looking at what services we can deliver to customers as a service that deliver most benefit. We really want to be an enabler for digital transformation and allow customers to harness the benefits of the cloud where it's appropriate, but where those workloads aren't appropriate, to essentially get the cloud experience with the on-premise environment. So, you know, a long-winded way of answering your question, but this goes beyond a PCP. It's not a finance arrangement. It is a true as-a-service delivery model to ensure the customers can get the most out of the environments that they have and get that cloud experience for those workloads that don't naturally lend themselves to moving to an AWS or Azure or GCP.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for that, Davin. So second question again is well, it's around cost, and is it more expensive? Because one of the things that we would consider is that, and again, in talking to clients, and it's not being in a disparaging way, but a lot of clients don't actually look at the full TCO of a solution. So, you know, can you talk to us about, you know, how expensive, less or more, you know, implementing GreenLake actually is?
So there's two aspects to that question. So, you know, if we look at a TCO perspective, I suppose, and you effectively alluded to yourself, you need to ask, what do you measure within that total cost of ownership? And when we look at the types of services that could be delivered through the likes of GreenLake, it's what opportunity does the customer have to get better benefit out of an as-a-service solution like GreenLake itself. So, as I mentioned earlier on, because it's delivered as a service, we own, we manage, we monitor the infrastructure that you have, and we help optimize that for you. So that effectively releases a huge amount of time and effort that can be focused on driving the organization forward. So that's a benefit to the organization that generally gets lost in the total cost of ownership analysis. If we look at just the base TCO metrics that most organizations play to today, the fact that with GreenLake, it's sized for today, not sized for 5 years' time. The fact that you're not power cooling, monitoring and managing that infrastructure means there are cost savings within it. So to me, I know it's not directly answering the question on the TCO, but I think we need to broaden what people see as the total cost of ownership of an environment and what benefits it can bring. From a cost perspective, it's really about, you know, what what are you comparing it to? I would not be presenting GreenLake to a customer who wants to just do a traditional infrastructure or infrastructure refresh. You know, really what we're looking at here with GreenLake is an alternative to the likes of AWS or Azure and the costs that are associated with them. We all know that those public cloud services offer a lot of benefit and agility to an organization. But if you have workloads that are going to sit there for, you know, 24/7, 365 for 3 or 5 years, how do those costs actually map out over the life cycle of that? And generally, when we look at GreenLake on a like-for-like comparison with something like that, it generally comes in favor in relation to the overall cost of an on-premise GreenLake solution versus a public cloud solution. But then again, it's all about looking at the workloads and seeing where they're best placed. With HPE, as I said before, it's about getting the right mix, evaluating your workloads, seeing where you get best efficiency for those and placing in the most appropriate place. So you get best cost benefit, but also best outcome for the organization itself.
Right stuff. So don't you just hate when somebody actually takes your next question within the previous question? But anyway, no, I'm joking. You mentioned agility. So look, you know, and we sell public cloud as well, and you know, agility is a big benefit to taking workloads to public cloud. So can you just touch on, you know, how you can bring that agility to the organization via the GreenLake model?
Yeah, so as I pointed to one of the slides earlier on, there's a huge portfolio as a service solutions available to GreenLake. So if we look at GreenLake and you're talking about agility, so let's take private cloud as an example. So within the HPE GreenLake for private cloud, what we would do is we would deliver, you know, the best of breed infrastructure on premise to the customer or into a colo facility for a customer itself. We would stand that up, and we will monitor and maintain that environment, and we will monitor and maintain that whole automation layer. As part of that, then you get access to GreenLake Central, and through GreenLake Central, then you can consume additional resources or request additional services within the environment. So if I share my screen, I can just show you a quick view of what GreenLake Central might look like, and hopefully this will bring it to life for a customer. So down in this bottom right hand corner, we've GreenLake for private cloud, and we can see what's being consumed within the on-premise solution today. And through this, by giving the rights to the appropriate people within the organization, they can essentially again go in and through a number of clicks, request additional services be added to the environment. So we can simply go putting in parameters that would be asked for in relation to network connectivity, which resources pools it needs to be connected to. We can then complete a request within the environment, and that will get delivered to you through the automation tools that we have. So again, this is based on an on-premise infrastructure that we've delivered to you as a customer with the automation layer available to you to have that as a service portal and the agility to spin up and spin down resource when you're required. But more importantly, it also gives you the access into anything you might have in AWS or anything you might have in Azure to be able to see what resources we have and what's the best place to access these resources. So again, if you want to spin up resources within AWS, again, you will use that same GreenLake Central portal available to you. And as I said earlier on, again, one of the key decisions about being agile is being able to make the right decisions, and having the right information available to you when you need it would enable you to make those right decisions effectively. So having the costs here, having the capacity planning here, all available to you will help you achieve that agility.
Okay, thanks for that. So, you know, sticking on the cost side of things for a moment, you know, in some customers' experience, predicting costs with public cloud has been difficult, and you know they would describe that it can nearly race away. So, you know, in terms of can we predict costs with HPE GreenLake within the environment? Is it predictable?
Yeah, so there's a number of aspects to that. So, first off, again, if I share my screen, if we look at this top right-hand corner, we can see very clearly what the costs have been within this GreenLake footprint that we have today. And we can see very clearly what the resource utilization based on the current month that we have. Again, we will have the same insights in relation to the AWS and the Azure environment that we potentially have within the organization. So having that information there available to you in a dashboard will make that control a little bit better. But also within GreenLake, it's also giving you the ability to actually put controls in relation to who can request what services, where they can request those services to. And one of the key aspects in relation to that lack of control in relation to cloud over the last couple of years has been with the likes of shadow IT, or people that have given the rights that they shouldn't, so they're spinning up resources and not tearing them down when they should be. It's about having the governance and control regarding the services, how they're being deployed, where they're being deployed, and are they being deployed efficiently and pulled down when they're not being deployed. And having all of this available to you in a central screen, and also being able to have the continuous compliance in place, should give you more control over where those costs are going to come from.
Okay, thanks for that. So, Antonio Neri announced procurement of all things HPE via the GreenLake model by the end of 2022. Is it realistic? And then what happens to people that are just requiring or just acquiring standard sort of infrastructure within that? How or if it can be dealt with?
Yeah, so the thing to bear in mind there is when Antonio made that announcement a couple of years ago, he was making sure that everything within our portfolio was going to be available as a service. It's not that everything is going to have to be delivered as a service. So that's probably one thing worth clarifying. So, all of our infrastructure and services today are available to a customer in the traditional route. But one of the key tenets was that any product that we have within our portfolio can be delivered as a service through GreenLake. And that was the key statement that he was making. Over the last couple of years, a lot of focus has gone into the existing portfolio that we have and being able to adapt or create the services so we can deliver, whether it be compute or storage or networking as a service to a customer when they require. But in the meantime, processes and protocols were put in place that any new product that's been designed or thought of within HPE from an R&D perspective, one of the first hurdles it has to get over is, can it be delivered as a service? And that's helping ramp and accelerate our ability to deliver our portfolio as a service, to ensure that any new product coming down the line effectively has GreenLake at its core, but again, can be delivered through a traditional procurement route if that's what customers desire.
Okay, that's excellent. So we've got a number of questions in via live questions and answers, and they all sort of refer, or sorry, a number of them refer to what differentiates HPE GreenLake from the established as a service platform like Azure or AWS.
I suppose one of the things would be in relation to choice. So you've the ability to choose the components that you want within the GreenLake itself, the GreenLake platform itself. It's also giving you control over where that data is going to be. So, we're seeing a lot happening today with data being created at the edge. The ability to move that data into the cloud is there, but do you really need to have the costs associated with that, with data egress and ingress charges? So being able to place the data where you have, make sure you getting the most value out of that data, and then shift that onto the most appropriate position, whether that be in AWS or Azure. One thing we're seeing is both from AWS and Azure, they see the world as hybrid themselves. So they're coming out with the likes of Azure Stack and Outpost. But with both of those, you're going to be tied into their public cloud version, their link. So with whether it be AWS or Azure. With GreenLake, effectively, we're agnostic. So through the GreenLake Central Portal, as I pointed out earlier on, you can access both your AWS and your Azure resources through that single screen, and be able to deploy the resources again through that. So really, with HPE GreenLake, it's giving you the choice to go hybrid without having to effectively pin your colors to the mast this early on in the process, and give you the flexibility as your journey evolves. Because we all know today, the one thing that is constant is change, and we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years time, let alone 6 months time. So being able to have the flexibility to move those resources around from on-prem or those public cloud providers is one of the key differentiators that GreenLake would have.
That's great, Davin. So just another question here, which is, there's been a surge in breaches of cloud platforms over the last 9 months as hackers and developing malware to target this area. How can HPE GreenLake protect company-sensitive data? So
the great thing about GreenLake is it's all within the infrastructure and the data you put on it. It's all within your own control. So whether it be in your own data center, whether it be in a colo facility, and we can put a wrapper around in relation to what security devices are going to encompass that. So you have that control that you don't have with the public cloud providers. So it's 100% built to your specification, whether that be not just only from the compute and storage, but also the networking and the security aspects. So we can use those same governance and protocols that you have with your on-premise infrastructure, but give you that agility and that pay-as-you-use flexibility that you get from the cloud providers.
That's excellent. So just moving to the final question, which is, what differentiates you from Dell?
It's been interesting, for many IT organizations, I suppose for every organization across the globe, COVID has had a major impact in relation to their business. And both Dell and Cisco in their Q3 results talked about how they're shifting to as a service and going to come to market with as a service solutions. This has been a journey by HPE over a number of years. Antonio Neri announced it over 2 years ago now at this stage. And so we've a lot of heritage and research and development behind us with the GreenLake platform and protocol or portfolio. The other aspect to it is that portfolio has expanded quite significantly. So as I showed on my slide earlier on, the breadth of the portfolio that we have, and whereas what we've seen from Cisco and Dell at the moment, they're still very much at a financial services focus on their as a service offerings today. And there's quite a lot of catch up to be done. If we look at, the breadth of what HPE are delivering today, we've over 1,000 customers across 50 countries. There's over 700 partners already selling GreenLake today. And we've built up a huge amount of unique IP through research and development. That means that, at the moment we stand head and shoulders above our competitors in the market, and it's something I'm working hard to make sure we continue to do so.
That's great, Davin. So Davin, look, thanks for your time this morning, for taking the time to be with us, and hopefully people have found it a useful use of their time. I see that we're actually going to finish bang on time, which is really good news. I'd like to thank all the customers and attendees this morning for taking the time. Hopefully you found some of it beneficial in terms of the debate. Under normal circumstances, we would invite customers into the HPE Envisioning Center, for a test drive of HPE GreenLake. But look, as I said earlier, the show must go on. So, if there is an interest, we can arrange, to have Teams calls and to actually make this stuff relevant if people want to engage. So we would encourage customers to engage with us around the debate as to whether GreenLake is suitable to your organization or or not. Some would actually say, Davin, that they'd like you test driving that car that you have behind you on your backdrop. But look, you know, thank you to everybody, and I really appreciate you taking the time. And look, stay safe during our impending lockdown of the country, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, all.